This episode of Your Money and Your Life is brought to you by our partner, Compare the Market.
Coming up on Your Money and Your Life, who's done it tougher, today's young homeowner or their baby boomer parents? The verdict is in. Giving your superannuation a makeover to ensure you have the best retirement, and bank shares are loved by investors, but do they actually perform? You'll be surprised. Plus, Kochie's budget challenge helps a young family save thousands on their bills. G'day and welcome to Your Money and Your Life, the show that's all about saving, spending, investing and enjoying your money. My mission is to make sure you make the very most of your money, that you're getting the very best deals on everything from home loans and insurance to credit cards and petrol. Now, the property market defied expectations in 2023 as prices held up despite rising interest rates. But will we continue to see growth this year? I'm joined by Ray White, Chief Economist, Nerida Conisbee from Melbourne. Now, Nerida, where do you see property prices going in 2024? Can that sustainable growth keep going?
At this stage, it does look like it will keep going. A lot does depend on the interest rate outlook, which is looking quite different this year compared to last year. But fundamentally, a lot of what drove pricing last year is still an issue. So we still have strong population growth. We do have a real shortage of homes being built.
Where will be the best investment potential this year? Home units or houses?
Well, apartments have done really well in many parts of Australia. So typically, there's the general advice that it's better to buy a house than an apartment, and within a suburb, that is generally the case. That if you can afford a house in a good suburb, it's probably the better option. But we are seeing some really decent apartment price growth in many places. So Brisbane, for example, is currently seeing stronger unit price growth than it is seeing house price growth. So that's quite an unusual situation that we're seeing. Capital city
Value growth, will it be consistent? Which are going to be the outperformers and the underperformers?
Well, the big one has been Perth. Perth was really a really strong market last year. So the things that were driving it were very similar to the rest of Australia. There weren't enough homes built, there was population pressure. Iron ore has really driven that property market over the last 10 to 20 years. But now that WA is moving more into green energy minerals, we are starting to see a next wave of wealth coming through. Adelaide's another one. So Adelaide is still very affordable, and the median price is less than half of Sydney. People have been moving there at quite a strong rate, so that's done well. And then talking about population movement, southeast Queensland continues to be a strong performer.
So the smaller capital city is going to do well in 2024. Nerida Conisbee, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Now to Kochie's budget challenge. Every week, with the help of the team at Compare the Market, we're going to help average Aussies find better deals on their biggest bills and save them thousands of dollars and change their lives. Healthcare workers Jamie and Darcy have 3 boys and lots of bills, from dental braces to school fees. They've never had a holiday because they put their savings into buying a home. I stopped by their place for some bill crunching. Jamie and Darcy, thanks for having us, and fellas, really appreciate it. Tough time for everyone at the moment. How tough has it been for you guys to cope financially?
Definitely getting harder, and we're feeling the pinch a lot more, I'd say, in the last few months with the interest rate rises over the last year, grocery bills rising, petrol bills, electricity, all definitely bringing our weekly budget in much tighter.
How have you tried to get ahead? What sort of sacrifices have you made?
I would say we just really knuckled down on what we're spending each week. So looking at grocery bills, that's a big one for us, what we're spending.
3 growing boys.
Yes, spending a lot on food to feed them.
Yeah.
But it's just, I feel like we're doing a fairly good job, but potentially this could help us a bit more.
All right, good challenge for us here. What about specific goals?
Well, I'm from Canada, and we haven't been back since we moved here 14 years ago. So I'd love to take the boys back to Canada, show them properly where Dad grew up, what it's actually like my side of the family, other than just via Skype or Grandma coming to visit. And then, nice renovation wouldn't hurt.
So our goal is to get you to Canada. Boys, what do you think of that? You want to go to Canada?
Yeah.
All right, excellent.
Amazing.
Let's start it off. Coming up, bank stocks are share market darlings, but do they deliver decent returns? You may be surprised. Expert advice is next. Welcome back to Your Money and Your Life. Let's try and help you make some money on the share market. Look, Australia's big four banks, CBA, Westpac, ANZ, NAB, have been share market favourites and a core holding of so many share investors. But have they delivered to investors? Many say they haven't, that they're duds. Share analyst Grady Wolf from Bell Direct is with me. What do you think of the big four banks? Have they delivered?
So a lot of investors use them as staples in their portfolios. They're reduced risk, they provide income investing, so there's a lot to like about them. But then again, with the current macro environment, we've got a lot to think about. The outlook isn't very strong on the growth horizon, so we've got net interest margin has peaked. We've also got switching at a near all-time high.
So banks under pressure.
Banks are under pressure.
They've been steady but boring.
Yes.
There've been better opportunities in the market.
Absolutely.
2024, we've started a brand new year.
Yep.
What this year is a better alternative to the big four banks?
Asset diversification is important in this year. So as we saw last year, with your portfolio, you need to look at diversification because risk is so high and the markets are so volatile on macroeconomic events. The outlook is really favourable for gold. Now, the gold price was sitting at 50-year highs at the end of last year. This year, the outlook from fund managers, the markets, investors themselves, and those at the helm is super strong for gold to remain resilient. Copper had a false start last year, but the outlook is really strong as well on the materials front because copper is a really good storage of energy. And so with that in mind and that green energy transition, we need copper.
Okay, favourite gold stock?
Favourite gold stock, or Bellevue Gold's up there.
Okay, copper?
Copper, Aeris Resources is Bell Potter's pick.
Right, okay.
So those two. Then we have the healthcare companies. Since COVID, they came down, and understanding the outlook for their growth, it did slow post-COVID because they all went back to their clinical trials and the way forward for their own kind of medications and drugs. You've got the likes of Neuron, Telix Pharmaceuticals. They're making money. Clinivel Pharmaceuticals, 7 years cash flow positive. These ones are really, really strong and resilient.
You have given us some sensational alternatives, Grady. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
Good to see you. And if you're interested in share investing, I host a daily show, The Call, on the Ausbiz streaming network, where I put 10 stocks suggested by viewers to an expert panel for their views on whether to buy, hold or sell. It's a lot of fun, and Grady is one of our regular experts. A record number of Aussies, over half the population, now have private health cover, but not everyone is getting great value. That's because a growing number of people are choosing extremely limited but cheap basic hospital policies. These do little more than help people who earn more than the income threshold avoid the Medicare levy surcharge or tax time. So what else could you get on the next level up? Bronze policies include coverage towards 18 additional clinical categories, including joint reconstructions, hernia and appendix, chemotherapy and pain management treatment, to list just a few. All could be very important to you, especially as public hospital wait times blow out around the country. And more cover could cost less than you think. Compare the Market looked at their panel for hospital cover for a 30-year-old woman from Brisbane and found the difference between the cheapest basic cover and the cheapest bronze cover was just $203 a year, or around $17 a month when the maximum Australian government rebate on private health insurance was applied. So next time you look for health cover, remember, cheapest is not always best. Now, when every dollar counts, it pays to compare. For more, head to comparethemarket.com.au. After the break, over 5 million Australians are wasting their superannuation. We'll find out how you can supercharge your retirement savings. Welcome back to Your Money and Your Life. Now, over 5 million Australians have their superannuation in a default MySuper account. The problem is that default accounts, on average, return about 16% less on a balanced fund than other superannuation alternatives. That's a big difference in return and a massive difference in the amount you'll retire with. So let's look at the best ways to get your superannuation in shape to make it work harder to fund a better retirement. Joining me is financial planner Ben Nash from Pivot Wealth. Ben, good to see you.
Good to be here.
That's a big difference in return, 16%, isn't it? Are we just lazy using a default fund?
Well, I think it's a little bit of that out of sight, out of mind. Like, as you see in the stats, that a large number of Aussies are allowing their employer to choose their super fund for them, and it's just an easy option. You join an employer, they have a default fund, and you go with it. But it's not necessarily always the very best option, and your super ultimately is one of your biggest assets. So a little bit of work will provide a pretty big return.
Okay, first step, your investment options. A lot of people may not know that you have a whole list of options available for you.
Yeah, I think it can be really overwhelming because there are so many super funds out there that it is really hard to choose. But I think the best place to start is to look at what sort of investments do you actually want to use in your super fund. That will require you to do a bit of research or education or potentially get some advice first, but figure out what sort of investments do you want to run. That will then narrow down the field of which super, and from there, if they're providing similar investments, it's a bit of a price game. Look at which ones, about value for money fees, but look at which ones are going to give you the investments that you want at a reasonable price point, and then you got yourself a fund.
Okay, how do you determine which investment areas you want to go into? What are the considerations? Because you can mix and match, can't you?
Yeah, you absolutely can, but there are two main schools of thought when it comes to investing. The first is active investment management, and with an active investment, that there's a fund manager or research house or a group of fund managers that are actively trying to perform better or differently to the market. The alternative is passive index fund investments that just follow the overall share market return. Now, there's a lot of different ways to be right when it comes to investing, and it does partly come down to personal preference, but the statistics show us that passive index funds perform better than active funds more than 90% of the time. Wow. So if you choose an active fund, you've only really got a 1 in 10 chance of doing better than a boring old index fund, which is cheap as chips and reliably delivers exactly what it is.
Isn't that fascinating? Yeah. Go your passive index funds for security, but also diversity. And don't be afraid of investing in shares.
And the upside of those sorts of funds are that they're very, very cheap, which means that you're paying a lot less fees with your super, and that means more of your returns can do things like provide for your retirement.
When your statement comes in, you got to read it, I say, because a lot of people just look at the balance and the return and nothing else. What should you look at in your statement when it lands this year?
I think definitely the balance and the performance is part of it, but understanding the fees as well. And there are fees in different categories on these statements. They have a thing that's called indirect fees, which is essentially like your investment management fees. Sometimes people don't pick up on those. You don't need a lot of work or attention to look after your super fund, but a little bit really does go a long way.
Ben, great advice as usual. Good to see you.
Good to be here.
Ben Nash from Pivot. Coming up, huge savings for Jamie and Darcy as we crunch their bills and show them better deals right under their noses. Plus, the verdict is in. Are the young homeowners of today doing it tougher than their baby boomer parents who are paying 17% interest? I settle the argument after the break. Welcome back to Your Money and Your Life. Who's doing it tougher? Young homeowners today or their baby boomer parents who are paying 17% mortgage interest? It's the intergenerational war of words that has been splitting families for decades. I used to whinge to my parents, and now my adult kids are doing it to me. Frankly, I don't think it achieves much, but here's the answer. It obviously depends on when the comparisons are made. For example, 18 months ago, when interest rates were low, baby boomer parents had it tougher. But today, after this latest sharp rise in interest rates, young homeowners are doing it tougher. While home buyers in the 90s faced 17% home loan rates, house prices were much lower. Borrowers back then didn't have to save for big deposits and they could borrow less to buy a home. The key difference between the 90s and now is the average mortgage size has risen 6 times faster than wages. The average loan size in Australia was $67,700 back in the 90s. Now it's $593,000 and more if you're buying in high-priced Sydney and Melbourne. So, Mum and Dad, the youngsters do have a point. Back to Kochie's budget challenge. We've sent the major bills to the gurus that compare the market, who have searched for better deals and hopefully big savings. Let's see how they've done. Well, Jamie and Darcy, we've sent your big pain points, your big bills to the team at Compare the Market. Remember, these are just guides. On your energy, you got a really good deal to start with, but then when it renewed, it expired and you went on to a standing offer, which often isn't the best offer being offered to new customers. With your energy bill, can I just have a quick look at your statement there? Based on this, you're paying roughly $1,200 a year on your energy bill. But on everyone's energy bill, which is a really good hack, most people overlook it, there's a little panel here that says, could you save money on another plan? Now, energy providers must put this in by regulation. And on yours, it says, based on your current usage, our Origin Go Solar variable could save you $360 a year. Then going to a different provider will provide 18% off the reference price, which includes a $150 bill credit as well. So big savings in energy for you.
That's amazing.
That is really.
Just by making a call, simple as that. A home loan, pretty good rate, 6.19%. You probably could get it down to just over 6%, 6.04% is one of the best rates in the market. And that'll save around $1,400 a year in repayments, straight off your home loan. Now, you've got an offset account. Do you use the offset account?
Yeah, we have all our income going straight into it.
All right, so you use it really well.
We're trying.
Okay,
Yeah.
because the thing, a good hack with home loans is that offset accounts are really convenient and they do work in your favour if you're really disciplined like you are with the transaction account, but you do pay a slightly higher rate. For example, we can get you 6.04% with an offset account, or we can get you 5.94% without an offset account. So that's something for you to weigh up on how much you put in the offset account and how much it pays off. Going from 6.04 to 5.94% reduces your repayments by almost $2,500.
It's a big saving.
It is massive.
With your contents insurance, it's only a small saving on the premium with comparable policies of about $32. But we noticed you've got a high valuation for the contents of about $80,000. I reckon it might be worthwhile using a content calculator that's attached to most insurance company websites and just go through exactly what your contents are. Because to give you an example, if you reduce the $80,000 coverage to $60,000, you'd get quotes starting at $360 a year. Okay, so it's quite a big difference to the over $400 you're paying now on the contents insurance. So all up, after going through all of that, pretty easily, we could save, depending on the offset account with the home loan here, between $2,000 and $3,000, basically instantly, which is, I just checked, is 2 adult return tickets to Vancouver So at least we've got both of you to Canada. Now we've got to try and get the kids there with even more saving.
Exactly. So while you're here, I actually
Yeah.
have found a few more bills, if you don't mind having a look at them for me.
So this will go into the kids' goal
Yes.
of getting to Canada?
Yes.
Perfect. Okay. Well, I need to take them away and do a bit of work, but I will get back to you and see if we can get the kids to Canada as a
Yes.
result of this.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you
You're
so
very
much.
welcome. Thank you.
Now, we looked at Jamie and Darcy's late bills, and if they decide, they could cut their commitments by just over $1,000 a year. And I reckon that could get an airline ticket for one of the kids to Canada as well. So happy holidays, guys. Well, that's it from me for today. I hope you've enjoyed this episode of Your Money and Your Life. For all the latest money and investment news that you need to know, go to ymyl.com.au. And while you're there, subscribe to my free email newsletter, which is delivered to your inbox every Friday. See you next time. Next week on Your Money and Your Life, the first steps to get your finances back on track. In our share market chat, we look at uranium stocks. Rents are outperforming, so is now the time to be a landlord. And in our Kochie's Budget Challenge, we visit a mother of two dealing with the pressures of running a family budget on her own.